So yeah, hi, I am Jackson. I am the Senior Technical Director at Silverstripe. I'm also the formal product owner of Silverstripe CMS. But I thought that for StripeCon this year, I'd kind of come and chat. I had all these grand dreams of big presentable content, but then I realized that I just really love the product and I wanted to speak to, the developer experience in the product. And so I thought I'd just take you through where my thoughts go and we'll go through what's cooking here in our R&D and in some of our implementation. And I wanted to focus on CMS 6. So I imagine that there is a lot of content coming throughout the rest of the event that will touch on great elements of CMS 5. And we're very excited to be seeing the release of CMS 5.3 coming up in October. So I thought I'd go a little bit ahead and see if I can't bring some fresh content right out from the Silverstripe labs here in New Zealand. But to sort of get us started, I think a bit of context about me. I'm sort of quiet in the community and I have a relatively low profile when it comes to contributing to core. I've developed a lot of CMS over the years, and I work mostly with trying to get CMS out to fantastic customers. But my journey with Silverstripe CMS begins like way back in the end of 2008, early 2009. I was starting a promotion company. I was trying to push electronic music here in New Zealand, and I really needed a platform that I could use to reach my audience. Now, Facebook was very new. I think we were still having to reach out on like the tail end of MySpace pages back then. And I was asking around in the community in New Zealand, and I was very lucky that a contact of mine from further down south in Dunedin happened to come across this incredible software called Silverstripe. And I installed Silverstripe 2.1. And I just started from there. And what I began to use in the way that I would implement this for promotion was I used to go out into the club scene in New Zealand and I would engage with artists and events and I would sort of collect all of these commodities from them. I would collect tickets to the events. I would collect ways to promote their branding. I would collect ways to promote their artists. And then I would create forms through CMS that would allow my audience to then enter competitions and to raise questions for interviews and to win access to events and all sorts of incredible stuff. And now this is way early in my career. I was actually in IT before I moved to, web development and have now kind of moved into technology leadership. And I was just completely blown away that I was able to create an incredible engagement platform through Silverstripe CMS 2.1. I had all of the classic problems. I had to deal with, no grid field back then. I had to deal with data object management. I remember one day I put too many file upload fields into one view and the page started taking 70 seconds to load. I had no idea how to optimize, but I was just so incredibly impressed. And if anything, it really brought me alive. Being able to reach an audience, I really live to be able to reach people through technology. And so this started me off and I never looked back. It was kind of a life-changing moment for me. More backstory that I won't go into, but I often talk with Sam, who's still on our board here at Silverstripe, and I'll reflect with him on how Silverstripe was kind of this gift that came out of the open source community and allowed me to really decide how I wanted to dedicate my interest in technology. And it was a real turning point for me. So in 2008, 2009, I sort of entered the community and I used to have to chat on IRC before Slack, and I used to have to try and delve for as much information as I could. This was before Uncle Cheese had made any guitar tutorials in the early 2010s. This was before Ingo had written the book on Silverstripe. And I got to follow that whole journey. all the way into CMS 3, and I got to sort of bring on and come along with the journey of Gridfield and all of the modules and the module capability that was introduced. CMS 4, and I got to go through that very fun upgrade into CMS 4. We got to find that maturity in the way that Silverstripe was organizing its modules and organizing its community. In fact, I was using Silverstripe CMS before Composer was the recommended package management system, where the primary way to access the binary, for lack of a better expression, was to just download it and hold a static copy of it on your local file system. So I've really come along with Silverstripe in its lifetime, and I've used it in New Zealand in quite amazing ways, in ways that I never really imagined I could reach, through large brands in New Zealand, like one of our tourism brands here that engages with, tens of thousands of enterprises and tourist outlets here in New Zealand, through a massive international audience. I've managed to connect to really quite sophisticated systems. I've built financial systems. I've built trading systems. I've built lending systems, all in Silverstripe framework. I've built, I'm very lucky working here at Silverstripe, because the way that we implement Silverstripe CMS is incredibly powerful. And so what I'm trying to do here as a product owner is I'm trying to really make sure that this product, this content management system, is that incredible tool that we just love to use, we love the flavor of. It doesn't stray away from its principles and how to make a great CMS. I still remember the essence of trying to deal with Drupal way back in the day, or the early versions of Magento if I was trying to do e-commerce, or the early versions of WordPress, and discovering Silverstripe's conceptual integrity in, MVC, which I think later then became aspect orientation and then kind of came back to its MVC roots. And just the absolute quality of being able to build with great principles made me understand that I could not only learn from the CMS, but I could also expand and customize the CMS and extend it. And those two things, I think, is all about that idea sharing, and that being able to think out loud and being able to think in the community and being able to just work through Silverstripe CMS as a conduit for quite incredible things. So I'm so stoked to be here. Kia ora. Let's have a look at sort of where we're at with Silverstripe CMS. So we have a small but amazing team. Many of you will know Steve and Guy, and our lead CMS developer position is currently open. We are trying to find the exact match of a really great creative developer and someone that understands the code integrity and the code quality that can take incredible developers like Steve and Guy and continue to contribute at a high standard and with a way that drives an amazing product roadmap. So could this be you? If you are interested in, a lead CMS developer role, and we can figure out how to integrate with Silverstripe's, remote friendly hybrid way of working, please reach out to me. You can find me on LinkedIn. Let me know if you are interested in sort of taking and shaping Silverstripe CMS. At Silverstripe, there's actually more people who support in small but amazing ways, and I've just put some of them here. These people I sort of picked out just in terms of their direct connection with our CMS squad. We have a really incredible enthusiasm for Silverstripe CMS here at Silverstripe, and we are lucky to have so many people supporting. But what I'll kind of explain in a minute is that there's some real challenges. This might look like a lot of people, and they are incredibly passionate and amazingly supportive, but we've got to figure out how to overcome the limitations of the market and our commercial challenges to get value into the CMS. But I think probably more accurately, it's us who are supported by Steve and Guy. For anyone in the Silverstripe users community, I'm sure you will have engaged with Guy. You will have asked a question and found some help or some empathy for your challenge, or maybe a suggestion, or just, really well thought out feedback on the state of the product. Also, Steve is amazing at turning up with the accuracy of our architecture, turning up with the accuracy of our principles and how we work with the product. Steve and Guy, I wish I had pulled the statistics actually on the level of engagement from Steve and Guy, but they are doing the lion's share of our engagement on our community Slack. They provide the security context that we all rely on when we go out for CVEs or we go out for security updates and patches. They provide the beautifully informative change logs that we all depend on. And seeing our release process from the inside and seeing all of the modules that we cross-compare and the parity between version systems and the rules in place that allow us to release across so many modules, it is a phenomenal orchestration. They are incredibly talented. I'm so, really quite proud to work with Guy and Steve, and I'm looking forward to telling you what we've been up to here in the background. So there's another aspect though, which is that we just love our community. I really appreciate you. Thank you for being one of our members on Silverstripe users Slack. Also, we've got a large count, a lot of people interested in CMS, but we know that there is a core group of dedicated people who are ready to turn up and chat, who are ready to turn up and share ideas and think in the open and engage with us in really great ways. If that's you, if you are a total resident here in our users Slack, I'm sure that you are helping people. I'm sure that you are contributing to conversation. And that's what keeps the energy in this CMS alive. So thank you very much. I'm really, really stoked to have such a fantastic community. And I'm really, really happy and quite sort of nourished to have been in the community for so long and to have seen the way that it's evolved and the way that we engage. Some of our recent contributors, we're getting that activity on GitHub. I thought I'd make sure to showcase a few people here. If you're not on the list and you know that you've been contributing recently, there's definitely more than these. This was just a quick insights. The beta GitHub feature broke on me a little bit while I was on my way through, but we have such a great level of contribution in terms of the type of people who contribute and what they contribute. I'll speak to the level of contribution later, but thank you so much for contributing to Silverstripe CMS. Now, a special thanks to StripeCon Europe, Korea Marketing, and S2 Hub. These are European-based groups that Silverstripe collaborates with directly. We do, I think it's fortnightly check-ins with Korea Marketing. We do technical design and feature contribution, and we talk about where the product can go. We have an incubator with S2 Hub where we talk on a monthly basis and we figure out how to find Silverstripe resources that can feed and grow the goals of the S2 Hub community and the global Silverstripe community. And of course, StripeCon turning up and providing an incredible conference and doing all the fantastic work. And I come from a promotions background. I come from an events background. I know how much effort goes in to putting on a StripeCon at this level of quality, with a speaker who can connect from New Zealand on the other side of the world at any time of day. So thank you so much for all the effort. I really, really appreciate the event and the quality of the event. So Silverstripe CMS, let's open the can and get into it. For Silverstripe, the tech sector has had a really rough time. And investment resources for Silverstripe CMS and Silverstripe.org have been limited. And I'm sure that we've all felt it in the community. And I often receive questions around, our roadmap and our .org and the elements that create our great open source community and when we can nourish and nurture them. We have incredible aspirations to be custodians, fantastic custodians of Silverstripe CMS, but at the same time, here in New Zealand, we are also a commercial business, and we need to maintain our sustainability through the work that we do so that we can contribute the funding back into Silverstripe CMS. Now, this year, another year of limited funds. we had to make some really tough choices, and we chose to focus on the security and maintenance, the supported modules, and our release schedule. And I believe that these are core tenets that allow us to continue our velocity. There are other aspects of Silverstripe CMS that I would have absolutely loved us to be able to progress, and I'll mention a couple of those. But right now, I hope that the community is proud of the choices we've made with limited resources and how we can maintain the sort of standard cadence of the product so that we can continue to rely on it and know it will be there and know that we're engaged with threat intelligence and all of the elements that make a mature product and contribute to patching and fixing along the way. We said farewell to Maxime. Maxime will be speaking later in the event, and I'm really looking forward to his talk. Unfortunately, Maxime found an amazing job here in New Zealand, and that's why the role of lead CMS developer is vacant, and we're recruiting. Also, our contribution is down. I did a check across our analytics just before this event, and Guy and Steve are way up there in terms of their contribution. I've dived into the pull requests and commits and everything, and across the board, our contribution from the community is down, and we are feeling that. And I know that in the life of Silverstripe CMS, we've had sort of surges and we've had different sort of waves and seasons of contribution. And I know that not every developer has the spare time or the capacity or maybe the ability to overcome the technical challenges to raise a solid pull request. And so I think we're feeling that. And this is actually something we want to focus on. So I'll return to this a little later. Some elements that I'm hoping you might be interested that we're working on to really boost our contribution. Our .org. Now, I can't quite remember how many years ago we talked about the .org refresh. It may have been 2 years ago. We may have talked about it since the last 2 years. The refresh is really envisioned and real. This screenshot you have here is not a mock-up. It is a real design that is ready for implementation. But unfortunately, due to our financial challenges, we had to make a tough choice to delay the .org. Now, one of our team members, especially here at Silverstripe, is a huge champion and has the incredible design talent and the information architecture talent that brings this to life. And I really want to stand by James here on our team to see this become a reality. And I want to see this platform thriving and fresh and renewed as soon as we possibly can. Now, Silverstripe is still heavily used, which is fantastic. It's used in varied ways across the globe, also in government, especially here in New Zealand. It is a strong government product that the government in New Zealand feels they have real equity in, and they're a member of the community. I spoke just 2 weeks ago with a government here in a ministry here in Wellington who was speaking to the Elemental module and how they really felt connected to the work and the mahi that went into that module and how proud they are to be able to use that as a government agency. We see it in education, we see it in enterprise. We're lucky at Silverstripe. We have around 1,000 environments running Silverstripe CMS, and they're obviously varied between production environments and non-production environments. But we have some incredibly high-scale websites that are running. And also when I'm speaking to S2 Hub or Career Marketing, I have a really strong sense of the high-scale, high-performance capability that those collaborative teams have been able to land as a footprint using Silverstripe's framework. So we do love it, and we really love using it. And of course, we love to turn up where development meets community. StripeCon, thank you for that turn of phrase. I think it's fantastic, and we want to turn up here too, even if it's today as a member of the community, tomorrow bringing value and bringing equity, and to be able to continue to develop here in this community. So there's the presence here, and we love the product. And whenever I'm starting a side project or I'm contemplating new architectures, I'm always reaching for Silverstripe CMS. I love the flavor of it. I love my familiarity with it. I love being a power user of Silverstripe CMS, and I also love to be able to show what's possible. When at the surface level, you don't always see a clear path from the goal you have to how the product can do this for you. But if you've got someone who just loves the CMS and knows how to get incredible value out of it, they can take it so much further than people would assume at face value. So in New Zealand, in Te Reo Māori, we have a saying called kia kaha. And kia kaha is a term that the Māori community here in New Zealand use. And I also want Silverstripe CMS to be strong. It also happens to be Te Reo Māori Week here in New Zealand. And so I thought I'd share a little bit of our reo here in the presentation. So a bit of a theme I'm bringing to how I'm feeling and the energy I have for Silverstripe CMS is kia kaha, right? Be strong, get stuck in, keep going, push to where we want to go. So you'll be familiar with the roadmap that we display on silverstripe.org. This roadmap is still very real. We're still standing by our release policies. You can see that we've got ourselves pushed out all the way to 2025 and beyond. And the 6.0 stable release coming next year in April. This is where I'm going to sort of speak to today. I want to talk to Silverstripe CMS 6 and also what we're hoping to be able to introduce and expand during the series run of Silverstripe CMS 6 minors. So let's chat about Silverstripe CMS 6. And I don't necessarily want to go into the nitty gritty. I don't necessarily have a roadmap here that we can sort of put as a poster or up on the site. I more want to speak to the thinking that's driving what we're adding to CMS 6. And I also want to go further. I actually want to show you some of the things that we're prototyping and researching for CMS 6.x features. So let's get started with something that's interesting about our release policy and something that I feel is really vital, which is that our major upgrades are not like the iPhone, the iPhone X, the next grand major release of a tech product. We use our major upgrades as a firm reset, a place and a footing to get the dependencies right so that our minor releases can introduce incredible features as we roll through the series of that release. So our major upgrades focus on dependency upgrades, removing technical debt, and improving the architecture. And this is really vital so that we can pave the way for the things that we're exploring and prototyping, but also so that when we're collaborating with S2 Hub or Korea Marketing or even Innovative, we're actually helping to bring the waterline up so that the community can benefit from all of that effort. And we can introduce features that are contributed back into core or core modules, without necessarily needing to stray too far from a really solid foundation on the most recent major release. So in CMS 6, we will still use PHP, JavaScript, and React. These are sort of our favorite tools. We are very fluid with them. We have a lot of developers here at Silverstripe who are fantastic at each of these, some of these, all of these, in any combination. And, I've got Bernie here, who's one of our solutions architects. He's kind of came to me while we were chatting last week and made a real clear sort of sentiment of what we're hoping for Silverstripe. And that we kind of want to get CMS 6 back to fundamentals. We want to bring Silverstripe into the modern era, right? And we want to make it that framework of choice rather than just another product. I get stuck a lot in product conversation. Is it, Drupal public sector? Is it Umbraco? Is it Kentaco? Is it Silverstripe? Often being rolled around in these chats. But the answer I always have is that, every developer of Silverstripe I have ever met usually loves Silverstripe for its framework, loves Silverstripe for the flavor of how you code with it and how you customize and the familiarity. And that's something that we want to keep really true in CMS 6. So principle number one, we have being a flexible and powerful architecture. So this means we want to look into some like low-level changes for our architecture. I think, when we're thinking about increasing strong, typing coverage, I think what we're sort of talking about is, if you were working closely with the CMS, you'll find that our PHP typing is sort of varied. And where I often feel this is, say, in one of our queued jobs module, where this method must be the bane of my existence. It is incredibly vague. It can be used in so many ways. The verb has little declaration. It accepts an entire request with ambiguity. It fails silently all the time. These are examples of areas in the CMS where we want to look into really scaffolding and reinforcing the strength of these and providing an alternative API so that we can deprecate these loosely typed methods out of the system and people can rely on and go way further with the static analysis of the implementation of the code. So we're trying to move away from, light level, flexible but forgiving, and we're trying to move more into dependable and like high performance and high power. The analogy I sort of use for this principle is that Silverstripe CMS is built right now out of the box for a scale of maybe hundreds or thousands of factors of scale, and from there you're sort of on your own. But we want to actually have Silverstripe CMS out of the box enter in at millions of factors of scale, depending on what you're doing with it, so that you can really trust that it can go the distance with you. And these principles, I think, is how we're going to get there. We also are looking into left and main. Now, I know left and main is tried and true. I know left and main is the end of an era if we were to get rid of it or change it. But effectively, I think what a lot of us are looking for in the CMS is when we're in the back end of, the CMS admin, we want this to be a fantastic starting point, but often we get curious and we want to customize. And one of the things that just continuously gets in my way is left and main is one of those things that I just can't move. I can't split it. I can't really work with it. And I end up having to sort of work in and around it. My code becomes very like workaroundy when it comes to left and main, or I just start borrowing left and main idiosyncrasies. You might take an entire admin UI like this, and you want to get it to something with, deeper maturity of, say, like a file management, or, you want to get into, something that has, we want a jobs module that sort of has some real richness to it. We want left and main to get out of the way. So we're going to overhaul it so that it has flexibility. We're also changing it's not really an opinion. It's more of a default of what is the first class content citizen in Silverstripe CMS. So pages or site tree, depending on how you want to name them, these are just there all the time. They're, always braided right into everything you're building. If you're typing directly into the code, if you're looking at site tree, it's got everything. It's permissible, entity provided, CMS previewable, resettable, flushable. It's so many things that I think you get from an architecture that's overdue for really being revisited. And I'm very lucky that actually Guy in the CMS Squad is driving the thinking behind this. He has such a deep intimacy with the code. They have such a deep intimacy with the code that they are so ready to be able to split this out into meaningful components and make things really flexible for us. So we also are looking into something that we experience a lot at scale, especially in production, which is all of the queries inside of Silverstripe CMS right now, inside of the RM, always go to the same database. And you're getting reads and writes, and they're driving up costs on database, and they're slowing down performance. We're actually going to split out read-only to be able to introduce a replica database, if you like, so that your primary database can write, and handle the write load, and your read database can just handle the high volume of read query to try and maximize the query performance inside the RM. We're also going to introduce some benchmarking tools. Some of you, it depends on your workflow, probably pretty used to some of our debug toolbars and things like this. If we're going to be creating a great framework, a great foundation, we're going to want to give you tools that allow you to demonstrate whether you've actually improved the performance, whether you're meeting your non-functional requirements as you go into the maturity of your builds, or that your audience is simply getting really fast and performant web experience, because that's what they're really familiar with now, since the era of Web 2 and all the hyper optimization that's gone on in their sort of native applications and things like that. And then this is kind of my theme. One of the data engineers on my team said that this was a very Jackson phrase, which was a full abstraction of braided architectures. I'm sort of conceptual integrity from a quality perspective is a really big thing for me. And whenever I see something that I can't sort of like snap on or snap off or bolt on or bolt off or interface in meaningful ways at high standard, I kind of go, I really want us to be able to get to that level of abstraction maturity. I'm going to come back with a few things that will sort of demonstrate this and exemplify why we need to abstract those braided architectures out of the way. But really the theme here of this principle is getting things out of the way. So we've also got some other elements in terms of like we're getting rid of in-memory cache by default. This is to get all that popularity in Redis, memcached, APCU. I probably won't use APCU, but I'm sure if anyone's in that stack or they really need to gain access to that, we'll make sure that factories are available and that the cache is unopinionated and not blocking you. And then another thing we're actually going to change is right now, a lot of you are probably familiar with running dev build flush from CLI. Maybe you're using Sake, and then you also have to sort of find yourself running it in the web server as well. And there's sort of disparity between the two. We actually identified the root cause of that. And in future versions of the CMS, we're going to just make it so that it's a shared cache that flushes anywhere you are. And there's no ambiguity or confusion as to whether the cache is flushed right now or not. So let's move on to the second principle, which is that we're actually just working really hard to replace underlying technical debt. The PHP community has come such incredible ways since 2008 or earlier, and we want to take advantage of that. Also, in the early days, we were sort of convergently evolving these things together. And Silverstripe maybe adopted some great re-engineering of concepts of the day, but then that modern alternative went on to become a staple, to become the industry standard. So, we're upgrading from, you can get PHP 9 right now. We're going to upgrade us to PHP Unit, sorry, not PHP 9, PHP Unit 9, PHP Unit 11 is where we're heading to. So gone are the days where we were stuck on PHP Unit and everyone had to just accept that they were an outdated PHP unit. No online docs were helping them. Nothing modern would help. You couldn't get any of your great parallelization or your other optimization techniques for unit testing. We're just pushing that forward. We're pushing to the latest in modern alternatives to inbuilt systems. We also have a fantastic update coming where our Sake CLI has been re-engineered to use a Symfony component instead. So we've re-engineered this now. So everything is, used to be all accessible through HTTP. HTTP requests, that's like dev task, dev build, dev config. We've made that much more native at this stage. Also, we've ensured that Sake doesn't pretend to be a client making those requests, but it also means that it doesn't use the director routing and controller endpoints. So you can use Sake to navigate if you really need that behavior, but we're focusing on a great CLI tool. And I do want to say that with the improvements and changes to Sake, we've maintained the legacy syntax. So if you have a system, maybe a CI/CD pipeline or something running on Sake, we're going to try and make sure that we're backwards compatible because we understand how vital those CLI commands are in a developer lifecycle. So your classic, Sake dev/build space flush =1 will be available to you. Let's see if it's all more Symfony swaps. We're pushing for PSR7 HTTP requests and HTTP response. I imagine some people in the audience are going, thank you, because I feel like the discussion with that, I think, was mainly raised with Robbie. I can't remember how many years ago now. We've tried decorating, we've tried all sorts of things. We're going to push for it and maintain it as a PHP standard. Yeah, we're also going to optimize manifest so it's faster, it generates more intuitively, and also form validation with Symfony Validator. And that also means removing confusion about whether you're form validating or model validating or wherever you are in the call stack. We're going to clean that up and use sort of the best-in-class Symfony Validator to make it super clear what's going on with your validation. So principle 3, evolving our CMS with micro front ends and headless architectures. I'll admit, we kind of missed the boat on headless, and we had a big headless movement. And actually, I think part of what it was that was difficult for us is we needed to think differently about the presentation layer. So between that like CMS admin and things that are going on over here for those stakeholders, and then the presentation of the content that creates and how it gets pushed out to the world. And something we wanted to really solve early so that we can move into better architectures is to adopt, a slightly more federated module that's a federated factor that spreads across modules. And that's where we're looking into micro front ends. Now I want to show you a demo, if I've got time towards the end, of some prototyping that we've been doing with micro front ends. So we've detached Silverstripe GraphQL. Very in-demand module, a lot of questions. We received tons of questions about using GraphQL. People love the technology. Now, we haven't removed it completely. We've moved it to a module so that we can opt back in and explore GraphQL as a developer tool. But we've basically benchmarked the difference between GraphQL data paths and our standard, router paths. We found that router paths are working perfectly well, quite optimized as well. So we went and retrofitted all of the systems inside of the CMS so they use one consistent, transport protocol to reach its data between the interface and the backend. So we've detached GraphQL. We're also going further. We're clarifying the line between model layer and view. Probably a lot of you have experience going, oh, cool, like you're in VC, and we got viewable data. Okay, I'm starting to understand this concept. What's the purposes of, what can I do with it? Okay, well, I'm thinking about magic methods being assigned here. I'm thinking about, field accesses and mutators and everything. This is fantastic. I love being able to access the view layer. And maybe in here, I've got stuff where I can customize, and customize is obviously probably one of the most popular paths to be able to expand on a data object. And then you go elsewhere in the product and you get to say the request handler, and you go, hang on a minute. Request handler isn't supposed to be viewable. So somewhere along the way, and I kind of remember this from back in the day when we had object as the core class, and object was sort of the orientation base for when OOP was even more popular than, say, MVC. I barely hear us talk about OOP anymore. It's so endemic at this stage. But viewable data underneath request handler, what happened there? It seems a little strange. And now what am I supposed to be doing? Sorry, am I supposed to be viewing my request handler? That would be useful for me, but that's not the function of a handler. And then I'm coming in here and I'm finding that I have handle request methods that handle a viewable object, but at no point output a view of that object. I'm starting to get very confused in this abstraction. We actually want to go in and just make that much cleaner so that it's intuitive. It makes CMS easy to learn. And it also makes it better for your code organization. That means that we can push further and we can abstract the template layer. For everyone at home, that means you could bring in a module that uses Twig instead of SS Viewer. You could bring in your own template layer that has, proprietary logic that's really powerful and can just pull data straight out of the back end. So I know that Twig is a big feature request. We're stoked to be able to abstract this layer out so that we can bring something like Twig in. And we've actually done some prototyping. We have Twig working almost as a complete feature set alongside SS Viewer. So yeah, we're really ready to kind of take that leap. And then that also means you get to choose what you want to use. And I think that's that flexibility we're looking for. And that's helping us evolve into better architectures and micro front ends. Now I'm going to hit on micro front ends a lot because it's some great evolution in our thinking that I'm sharing here today. All right, principle number 4, cloud native for publishing to the edge and continuous development. So this is probably one of the things I struggle with the most. I'm accountable for an infrastructure that has 99.9% availability. It's driven across AWS, has global edge networks. It needs to deploy constantly. Outages are not really tolerated. At scale, we need native presentation layers ready to go, fully cached, not really contending with that layer 7 protection that you always need to worry about for your web application protection and all that stuff. We want to be able to push to the edge, store really light and lean in infrastructure, maybe like a statically published S3 pushing to the edge, or just straight from a small instance that's driving logic going straight out to, say, a cloud function or something that's supporting a CDN. And then also we have continuous development, or continuous deployment. We've been exploring continuous integration on our side, but we really have found that the continuous deployment leg is where we get the most struggle. Like, we're going past DevOps here at Silverstripe. We're trying to push towards Dev QAOps or Dev SecOps or App SecOps, depending on what you're looking for. And in that continuous deployment leg, we just want to make Silverstripe plug and playable and ready to interface with test management tools, security management tools, vulnerability scanning, and deployment, continuous deployment for things like blue-green or seamless deployment with no outage. So this is a big principle for us. And so something you'd hopefully be glad to hear is that Apache was the mainstay for Silverstripe for a long time, but so you're probably used to a lot of Silverstripe proprietary logic being in the correct htaccess file. I don't think I got it that time either. Where, thank you, you're getting a lot of application logic built into .htaccess, but hang on a minute, you need Apache and you need an Nginx mod, and you're trying to optimize and you're trying to work closely. And I don't know, maybe you're dealing with a reverse proxy and that's got a whole bunch of complication. We just want to get out of your way. We want to move a lot of our dependent logic in our Apache back into the CMS, into the framework, so that you can use whatever web service you like. That also means like much more modern local web development experience. Start up servers on your local much more rapidly. Don't necessarily have to depend on an Apache dependency. Don't have to learn and understand all of your Apache rules. Just go with the CMS. Also, schema optimizations. One of the schema optimizations we've changed most recently is we noticed that at scale, if you're deploying, the enum field that tracks class names has to do a lot of work to come over. When you have thousands of class names, the enum field is now really slowing you down. So we've just gone and eliminated the enumerated assumption, made it faster. We've turned it into a varchar. It's a feature optional. And now hopefully if you hit that scale and you're starting to experience that slowness and you're investigating and watching your enum do a whole bunch of transfers in the database as it tries to deploy, none of that happens anymore. It just rolls perfectly smoothly. And we're looking for optimizations like this all the time. If you have any, please let me know, hit me up. We would love to be able to technically design something with you and get it into the core. Lastly, we are just eliminating the assumption that content data is accessed through templates and templates only. I'll talk a little bit more about that in a minute. So the principle 5, we just want to make it easy for new developers. We want to keep things simple. We want to remove mess. We want to remove confusion. We don't even want you to have like strict limitations when you make a module. So we're going to get rid of things like a module has to have a config.php or a config folder. We're just going to allow Composer to like follow the rules for that for us. We're going to make knowledge center improvements. If you love knowledge bases like Stripe, think that, or the new React, or not really that new anymore, React, those knowledge centers are what we're aspiring to have: interactive, intelligent, helpful tips, great use cases. We're going to push for that. And lastly, command line generation. We have a prototype in-house that we call Kendo, but this is a bit like, Laravel and your ability to scaffold things through command line generation. All right, so that's CMS 6 as a major. And you can see that that's trying to lay down great architectures. Now, I'm just doing a quick time check. I imagine I've only got, 5 or 10 minutes, but I've got quite a few things I want to talk about in terms of things we're planning. So I'm just going to make a decision on the fly. I'm going to touch on some things very lightly. If you love the sound of them, hit me up on Silverstripe users Slack, or reach out to me on LinkedIn. We can definitely talk more. There's a lot more background thinking going on here. But one of the first ones, I talked earlier about contribution, and I, know and feel the pain of contributing. I know and feel the pain of trying to factor something so that it has common denomination for Silverstripe, but also works in the use case I'm trying to build it for. And hopefully we'll pass a peer review from Steve or Guy. So I actually want to try and figure out how to boost our core committers who are already trained and ready to go. So we want to explore, and we are looking into and have some internal policies in the RFC process about core committer power-ups and giving people who are just mainstays in the CMS the autonomy. I kind of have a bit of a principle, which is that if you can fix something, you should be allowed to break it. And so a core committer is exactly that. They're people that are incredibly good with the CMS and they can definitely fix things they break. So we want to give them agency and autonomy. We also want to make sure that there's premium training services for CMS authors so that anyone who sets up a CMS application, if their users aren't really buying in, if their authors aren't really buying in, we're going to have like learning management available for them. And so we're laying down the parameters of, a real study hall for learning the CMS, and we're going to make it premium so that, it's high quality. We can continue contributing to it. We're making accessibility enhancements for those of you who constantly have to accessibility test Silverstripe CMS. I apologize. We really do value accessibility and haven't been able to prioritize it until now. So we have already done a gap analysis of a first state of accessibility changes, and we're pushing through to see more and more accessibility reach WCAG standard, as we move forward. And obviously more language support. One of the biggest requests we received for CMS is to make sure that all of the interface is language supported, that modules have a high extent of language support. I think Carl's talk later in StripeCon is going to emphasize why language support across CMS, across Silverstripe CMS and its modules is now needed more than ever, because we're going to have a massive increase in language contribution. I have a strong sense of that. Other things as well, we want to introduce an interface so that you can integrate your favorite search provider into the CMS. If you have a very large CMS, I don't know, with thousands of products in an e-commerce concept or thousands of vendors in a stakeholder group, it's very hard to search that with full text search or just the MySQL search basis. The queries are absolutely gigantic. If you've ever tried to troubleshoot them, they're very hard. We want to just be able to provide an interface that lets you go to modern search capabilities. So you can go to faceted search, or you can go to vector search. You can choose what you need to be able to get the best functionality and performance out of search inside the CMS. We're also pushing for, now this is where that abstraction for braided architecture comes from, where right now, like, I don't know, maybe you're using, the member model. And you're starting to realize that, yeah, sure, the namespace is security, but I'm not sure how secure this member model is. It's very opinionated. It drives way too much of, say, like your role-based access logic or your attribute-based access logic. It turns up all over the CMS because it's been with us since very early. We are looking to really abstract away identity management, authentication protocols, even like federated Active Directory. We want to work in that space so that you can unbolt the Silverstripe identity management or the member management and authentication, and introduce an SSO model you want to use or an OAuth interface that you want to use so that you are working in a much more mature sense. Now I'm going to touch on this again in a minute. So yeah, this is where we want to be able to bring in NIST compliant cybersecurity access rights and controls. So this is where we're going to explore deeper levels of ABAC, REBAC, and RBAC and make sure that no one's questioning whether your field level information sensitivity is at risk or your IDP can't integrate meaningfully. You got it to authenticate. You got your forgot password to work, but everything else just seems trash. And we don't know why. We want to really create a push into the maturity in this space. I keep changing my desktop instead of changing the slide. So AI content assistance. Now, I'm not going to dive into this because Carl is going to speak to this later. I believe I'm trying to switch the times around. It's later today. The AI-powered translations in Silverstripe, please turn up for Carl's talk. I've seen behind the hood. It is very cool, and the depth of thinking they have gone to is way more than just simple AI content assistance. But I do want to be specific here that we're looking into the third-party LLM kind and not some deeper machine learning, sentiment analysis, brand weaving, A/B capability type of machine learning. We just want to get language right. We want to get content generated meaningfully. So we also want to, I'm saying want to a lot, but really what I mean is we're looking into these. We're prototyping and working closely with partners. So we have prototyped a much faster and accelerated CI/CD flow where Silverstripe as an application drops in, but integrates with, in this case, we're looking at a deployment dev QA ops pipeline. And you can see Silverstripe just drops in really beautifully. We want to make it faster to stand up in a pipeline. We want to make it easier to flash in data and dummy data and test cases. We want to make it much more natively available for your DevOps teams and your CI/CD. We're also pushing for stronger API interfaces. We want to come out of the box with most likely a module that is a full spec RESTful API, not something that's mostly there, something that's all the way there. We also have elements of interfaces to allow for distributed, digital asset management. You're probably familiar with one of the most powerful aspects of the CMS, which is the asset section. Now, believe it or not, this has its limits. And at Silverstripe, we actually hit the limits of this asset management quite a lot. We have some environments that have terabytes of asset management, and the asset manager is actually becoming an anti-pattern that is just further exacerbating the asset handling. And so we want to make sure that you can snap off the out-of-the-box file solution and integrate meaningfully into a distributed asset solution with all of the features that come with those from within fantastic products outside of the ecosystem. And of course, most vitally, we're trying to figure out the importance of making sure that you dev build flush every day. Make sure to always dev build flush for your nutritional requirements. So I think my slides here are loading a video. Nope, seem to be having some technical trouble. Here it comes. So some of you may have already had a sneak peek of this. We want the native collaborator experience inside Silverstripe to get much stronger. People are really well versed in how to collaborate asynchronously using comments, comment resolution, clarifications, questions, back and forth, all that sort of stuff. We've prototyped a collaborator comments feature for working with different people. Here's some of our Silverstripe member team members. And I do want to say there's a massive shout out here for Maxime. Maxime was the person that created that prototype and had it here as one of our innovations that we want to push forward with. So thank you very much, Maxime. Let's also talk about let's bring back micro front ends. Now, I am just conscious of time. Maybe if I'm lucky, Conviva, could you give me a time check in the chat just so I know how long you want me to go until we're finished? I want to spend a little bit of time on this micro front ends topic that I've been bringing up. So extensible micro front ends for every admin view and component. That's what we're prototyping. We're prototyping a federation of module interfaces that can all come together and produce an application experience. And you can see here like a very sort of simple nature. And one of the requirements, especially one that I try to bring as a product owner, is that we want to make sure that they're not just separated. It's not a two-pizza team like you would hear from at Amazon, but they're actually using Silverstripe concepts that we really love. You can scaffold them with configuration. You can extend them with hooks. You can inject them meaningfully where you can, so that you can have like that three-dimensional control over your customization and your extensibility. So if we're looking at, say, a demo I have for us here, what I've done is I've gone and I've set up a micro front end called Pyral. And big shout out to one of my solution architects who's helped me get this demo in place for you. For those of you who are familiar with Pyral, it is a pretty well-matured micro front end right now that's focusing on federation across teams inside of businesses. But we're drawing an exact parallel between teams working in, say, revenue channels or revenue spaces on their websites and teams working on modules and working on modular spaces within Silverstripe CMS. So something that we've been prototyping lately is how do you take that experience away from Entwine, away from half-baked GraphQL, away from limitations in SS Viewer, and how do you reintroduce a lot of that extensibility and customization? And so kind of what I have, I'll give you a bit of a visual, is I've got the CMS set up here, and I'm pushing for something new. I want to create a new interface, and I want it to have real complexity. Maybe I'm building a hierarchical tree model, or maybe I'm building a new drag and drop experience, and I know I want to go straight into a state-driven front end that's extensible and really powerful. And so let's bring in my micro admin. So now this is a very simple prototype, but I'm hoping that as we follow along, you'll understand what we're pushing for here with this model. So I've used a pilot and a Pyral app shell to take over the UI and give me full control over the UI. You can see it's my first module that's pushing the menu here. So you can see demo, and it's pushing elements. I've got some content here, which is being rendered out. And I want you to pay close attention to some of the wording. So this wording here says clear extension point. We're speaking to the extensibility of micro front ends. But you'll notice here that, hang on a minute, while my app shell is viewed and controlled really nicely, this extension point seems to have allowed me to influence the content from another part of the code base. And this is where the federation comes in, or the separation comes in, or we're still trying to figure out the right language. So what's actually happened here is I was the developer of the first module, a module that created the admin. And I'm actually, I've got a collaborator, maybe someone across the other side of the world who's created a second module. And they want to introduce a lower level functionality without necessarily needing to reinvent or rebuild my entire front end, pull in all of my front end assets, all of my tool chain, rebuild it all and drive everything. But instead, what they want to do is drop in, find their extension point, and start hooking in their content right away. So you can see my collaborator over in the Pyral module 2 is bringing in new content ready to work, content customized by another module. And you can see in my interface, that collaborator has been able to naturally extend my micro front end so that we can work independently using all of the great modularity and features that we really love about Silverstripe CMS. Now, I can't guarantee that we'll have perfect parity between your PHP experience and all of the configuration API and injector API, configuration API, with the JavaScript front end or the limitations of micro front ends. But we're going to try and make them as close as possible. And we're going to provide a lot of great training materials so that you can get hooked in and set up as quickly as possible, even if it's editing a small contribution through a module, like at an extension point, or a larger contribution through a full app shell or a full Pyro module in the micro front end. So this here is sort of what I'm illustrating, where we had module 1 in orange, module 2 in green. They came together ready for that presentation layer to present them both beautifully extensible and customizable ways. So this is where we're trying to push. And we would like the end state of this prototype to be an extensible micro front end for every admin view and every admin component inside the CMS, so that there is so much less nonsense in getting in and making an incredible CMS experience for your use case. And of course, you've probably touched on this or seen this. We're very lucky that our inside designers and some of our great hackers and developers here at Silverstripe, they've actually put together a prototype of a refreshed front end and something that these micro front ends will be able to drive and push through. You will have seen me using this in the demo implementation that I've been driving. I think my browser's just crashed. The demo implementation that I have been driving as we've been going along. And it's really fresh. It's really clean. It's intended for micro molecular composition so that we can think about information architectures in beautiful ways. And, we can start working down into federated capabilities across the CMS and really introduce a cleaner, modern version. Now you can see here, this is a module right now because we are circulating it in the community for use and contribution, and it is called BetaMask. So you can download the module, introduce it, and start working with it. You can see we even had it here in CMS version 5, which is what I'm driving it with here in this presentation. So I guess kind of what I wanted to bring just to chat was that we're really excited about Silverstripe CMS. And I'd love to come with some product manager, the familiar ways in which we see people present the roadmaps and the things they're developing into their products. But for now, in the space we're in and the creative energy that we're working with, I wanted to just walk you through all the things that we're prototyping and building ready for those CMS 6 minor versions that will be coming after April 2025. And I am so incredibly excited. And also, I am incredibly grateful. Having been in the community for so long, having seen really, star players come through the community and make incredible contributions. I'm very lucky to have worked, side by side with people like Uncle Cheese or Tractor Cow, or Ingo and Sam, and in small ways in some areas, maybe it was a little pull request here with Sam and a collaboration with him on the board of Silverstripe, and in much bigger ways working in-house, developing Silverstripe here on the ground. So to be the custodian of Silverstripe CMS right now is so fulfilling, and I just absolutely love Silverstripe CMS. I hope that you got a vibe from that as I was taking you through things at a very cursory level. And I really want that to show that we see this as an amazing opportunity to just keep evolving and shaping this product and stay with it in our excitement and take it as far as Silverstripe CMS needs to go. And we want to do that through collaboration and community. And so in this is maybe a bit of a call to action, which is if you've had that itch to contribute, please bring your ideas. There'll be members in the room with you right now who have been recently collaborating with us. If Nicholas is in the room, reach out for him. If S2 Hub is in the room, reach out for Werner, anyone there that's writing code. They can talk about, our excitement to receive contribution, boost contribution, make it easier, and bring it back to the product. That was such a bad hotkey. I've done it like 20 times. Kia kaha. Kia kaha. Ngā mihi nui. Thank you very much. Have an absolutely amazing StripeCon.